I'm a nurse, I'm an x-ray tech, I'm a science person. I am balanced and grounded. But I knew what it was. I knew what happened to me. And it's still there. So I opened my eyes. And right before me, not a half a foot from my face, was another face. And I looked at it and I screamed and I leapt out of bed. I see a tall figure in the doorway. It's very tall and it's kind of a triangular head and it's a very skinny body. And I'm thinking, what is this I'm looking at? And the first one comes up right next to me, right up about at my hips. And he extends his arm like this. And he has these long hands and long segmented fingers.
I remember very well the first time this all started. I was only 7 years old, sleeping in my cozy bed in our San Francisco flat. My bedroom was part of an old San Francisco house turned into 2 flats years ago. We lived in the lower level flat. It was a cozy old building that was once a Victorian house, now modernized. As I sleep soundly, I had no idea what was about to happen to me. The most important experience of my life, and that it has been. Something totally unknown and strange was about to make itself known to me and forever change how I view reality. My life at this point had been average for a boy growing up in the 50s. My parents both worked and I went to school. I was an only child with no brothers or sisters. I had a large bedroom to myself that looked towards playland and the ocean. My interests were different than most kids my age. I had my eyes on the stars. I loved astronomy, art, science, and music. I still joke today that my first football was a telescope. I always wondered when I looked up at the night sky what was out there. This night, I would find out.
Okay, I'm on, but why am I not full screen? Oh, there we are. Hi, and welcome to Breaking the Silence. Tonight, we have the great pleasure of having Bob Salas here back with us again. As you'll recall, um, over a year ago, he was one of our very first guests. Um, he's a wonderful guy, and he's really got some great things to share with you. And he's been sharing with you for a while, but we're going to go into more detail tonight because I told Bob he can talk about whatever he wants to talk about on our show. Um, we don't restrict people and tell them, well, don't talk about this, don't talk about that. This is his show, and so he gets to share with you whatever he likes. So, looking forward to that. Um, Currently, I've been working very hard on the next communion letter, and this has been turned into an actual film. You're going to see Mary reading this time. You're going to see a nice introductory intro that goes along with it, which is very imaginative, and its own score. And the visual effects that I'm doing, I went through the story, which happens to be one that you requested, and that was The Visitors in the Trees. One of my favorites, too, because it's so odd. But again, it's all so odd, isn't it? So I thought, well, this should be simple enough. Going into it, I realized when Mary read it to me and I took notes, um, I had to do like a whole bunch of characters. We got a husband and wife, two children. There were several different beings seen that were in the platform in the trees. And it was a very surreal thing, but also very real. It really happened to these people. And so that's the one I'm doing. So I had to create all the characters using a combination of programs, and I had to make them unique to what she describes, which was really challenging, but I found that I could do it. And so I did that. I built the location with the house that's up on a hill with the trees and all of that. It's everything that they discussed is there. And so this weekend we're going to shoot Mary, and then I will start doing the visual effects that will accompany what she's reading. So we're very excited about that. And again, thank you, Whitley, if you're listening, for allowing us to do this. It's really been special. So let's bring on Bob. Hey, Bob.
Hey,
Well,
Steve.
welcome to Breaking the Silence. You're back.
Yeah, I'm still here, still kicking, and
Yep.
looking forward to this. I like to kind of fill in some of the details that I think somehow get lost whenever I do a podcast, and they don't ask the right questions, I guess. But yeah, and please feel free to interrupt me at any time with questions or clarifications.
I'm laughing at Mary because I forgot to say, please hit that, please smash that like button. Hit and smash. It really does help us. I'm not kidding. It does. The likes go a long way to telling YouTube that you really like watching our show, and then it recommends it to other people like yourself that likes watching our show and would like to see someone like Bob. So anyway, sorry to interrupt you, and I'm not going to ask you any questions except how the hell are you?
I'm relatively well.
That's good.
Yes, I'm doing fine. Meryl and I are both doing fine.
That's excellent.
Yeah. Well, shall we start?
Yes, absolutely.
I'll start in 1966. Of course, I graduated from the Air Force Academy in 1964. But in the interest of time, I'll start in 1966 when I arrived at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. I arrived in the summer after about a year's training as a missile launch officer, prepared to take my role in that position And Malmstrom Air Force Base had control of about at least 150 Minuteman I missiles. They were segregated in 10 missile groups, which we called a flight of missiles. But each one of those missiles was pretty deadly. In fact, each one had the capability of unleashing about 800 kilotons equivalent of TNT in a nuclear blast. Just for reference, the missiles that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were about 15 to 20 kilotons. These were 800 kilotons, and at one point, I think we had a bomb that was equal to a megaton or 1,000,000 tons of TNT. When I arrived in the summer of '66, the Air Force had already issued a contract, or was about to issue a contract to the University of Colorado called the Condon Investigation. It was supposed to be a study of UFOs. And Edward Condon would be the chief of that group. And this was as a result from Congressman Gerald Ford, then the same Gerald Ford that later became vice president and president of Michigan. He was being pressured by his constituents after, I think, a series of incidents in Michigan, and his constituents were putting a little pressure on him. So he pressured the Air Force to do a so-called study. As it turned out, this would be, the Air Force saw this as an opportunity really to whitewash the entire UFO question. In fact, Robert Lowe, who was the deputy to Edward Condon, wrote a memo prior to even the start of this so-called investigation, stating that he thought the objective would be to do just enough investigating to convince the scientific community that they were trying hard to understand the phenomenon, but not really finding anything, but they wanted to appeal to the scientific aspect of their effort to convince them that they were. But it was really an opportunity for the Air Force to get out of reporting to the public on the many incidents that had occurred, and especially occurred over military facilities such as ours. So I was part of a two-man crew with Colonel Fred Mywald. He's now deceased. But the two of us formed a team of missile combat crew commander, and I was the deputy on that team. And our incident occurred on March 24th, 1967. So briefly, I'll just go over that. I was in command of the facility. We had 6 guards upstairs, security people, fully weaponized. And there were just the two of us, Colonel Mywald and myself, underground in a capsule about 60 feet underground. And we were locked in, ordered to stay in that location until we were relieved by another crew the next morning. So we were down there for about 24 hours. Sometime in the evening, my commander was taking a rest break. I was in charge of the facility. I got a call from the upstairs guard, which we call the flight security controller. He was really in charge of the security people upstairs. And he reported this strange thing he was observing. He said, there's some strange lights flying above us. They're flying very fast, stopping in midair, doing maneuvers that no airplane could possibly do, like 90-degree turns, things like that. No engine noise. And I even said, "You mean like UFOs?" because, because in fact, we had reports in the local newspaper, the Great Falls Tribune, of lighted objects in the sky nobody could explain, reporting by some of the citizenry. So I was just kind of pulling his leg a little bit, but he reported very soberly. It wasn't laughing. This was not intended to be a joke. He said, "Sir, these are not aircraft, because I can't explain what we're seeing." So I thanked him for the report. It was a serious report. He wasn't laughing or anything. And I said, "Well, let me know if something more interesting happens with those lights." And I kind of hung up on him. Didn't think too much of it. And then about 5 minutes or so later, he calls back, and this time he's screaming into the phone. He's literally babbling and shouting, and I can't make out what he's trying to tell me. I try to calm him down. Finally, I calm him down and said, "Now, what are you looking at?" He said, "Sir, I'm looking at a red-orange pulsating light that is hovering just above the front gate. It's large." I think he said it was about 40 to 50 feet in diameter. It was, I asked him if he could make out anything inside the light, and he said, "Well, it's difficult," but he said he could see a shape, an oval-shaped object inside the light. But he had all his guards out there with their weapons pointed at this object. And of course, it was their duty to protect the facility. He wanted me to tell him what to do next. And I turned it back on him, because I was flabbergasted myself, although I was very concerned because of his apparent extreme fear of what he was looking at. And I said, "Make sure the facility is secure. Do what you have to secure the facility up there." I want to emphasize that they had no ability to control anything to do with the missiles on topside up there. We had all the controls underground. But of course, we didn't want anybody, any kind of invasion of our facility or anything like that.
Yeah. How far underground were you?
We were about 60 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the missiles themselves are located about a mile or two away in a kind of a circle around where we were.
Mm-hmm.
But they were all connected individually with a very large cabling system. Each had their separate connection to our control area. They were not interconnected in a way that if one was disabled, they would all become disabled. That's not the way it worked.
Mm-hmm.
But at any rate, he said one of my guards got injured, and so he hung up the phone, which was strange. But as soon as he hung up the phone, for some reason, I had to take a look at the status board that we had to the left over there, and it showed the status of each missile, and they were all green. In other words, they were ready to launch. They've given the launch command. But I did feel that we were under some sort of an attack. It felt like that. It felt like something very dramatic was going on upstairs. I went over to my commander, who was sleeping in a cot we had down there. I was about to tell him about the phone calls, and then all of a sudden we hear the first loud horn go off. We knew what that meant. It meant one of the missiles had a problem. We looked over at the status board, and sure enough, one of the missiles had gone from green to red, or in a no-go condition.
Are those liquid fuel rockets?
No, these are solid fuel rockets.
Solid fuel.
Yeah. So he jumped up, went to our checklists. We had procedures to go through. And by the time we got up, all 10 of the missiles had been disabled while this object was still up there. 2 of the missile sites had what we called incursion lights, or indicators that someone or something had tried to enter the launch facilities where the missiles were located. And so I had to call back up and send guards out there, security people, to check it out. I called back up. I said, is that object still there? And he said, no, sir, it just flew off, just as you called. And so I know the object was up there when the missiles went down. And then I ordered him to send guards out to these 2 facilities where we had the incursion lights indicators. And when they got out there, they reported back that they saw, again, a strange light over each of those 2 facilities. So they were still shook up, and they came back right away.
So you could really hear it in their voices. I mean, this was not usual for them to behave in this way.
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah. But they were all very frightened. In fact, they lost radio contact after that report. They couldn't use their radios anymore. And then my commander, who had called the command post at Malmstrom Air Force Base, see, we were about 100 miles. Our location was 100 miles to the east of Great Falls, Montana. But we had a wing command post that we had to report to, and we did. And he turned to me and said, after that call, he said, the same thing happened at another flight. I just kind of shrugged. I didn't know what to think.
The same night?
I thought he meant the same night, because all he said was the same thing happened at another flight. But later on, I would, in my research, I would find out that that was happened 8 days earlier, and that was the Echo flight incident. We were at Oscar flight. Now, so things settled down. We called maintenance and had asked for maintenance people to come out and basically restart the missiles. We had a way of checking the reason for the failure of the missiles, and each failure read out guidance and control system failure. Okay, so the next thing that happened, I guess, is we waited for those maintenance people to come out. They were delayed, and I'll explain why later. But finally, we were relieved the next morning. First thing I did was to go upstairs to talk to that guard again, that security person. and he didn't want to talk to me. So I think the reason is because he was told not to talk.
Mm-hmm.
The
They're pretty quick about that.
yeah, they're pretty quick about shutting people up, and he was very reluctant. Finally, I stood him at attention and said, "You tell me again what you saw." And he repeated, it was a bright red orange light. At times it pulsated and was just sitting silently above the front gate. It was large. It was frightening. By the way, the guard that was injured, the injury was not due to anything the UFO did, but he did cut his hand either with the use of his weapon, or he might have cut it by trying to climb the fence, which had barbed wire around the fenced area. At any rate, he was sent back to the hospital to get stitches on his hand because it was bleeding pretty bad. And then they sent a helicopter out for us. At the base sent out a helicopter, wanted us to report back immediately to our squadron commander's office, which we did. I walked into that office, and I knew our squadron commander pretty well. He was a guy I spent some time with at the officers club. So I knew him well. He was an old World War II pilot, flew B-17s. He was as cool and calm, as collected as you please. First thing I said, was this some kind of an Air Force exercise? What the heck was going on out there? And he said, absolutely not. He was white as a sheet. And he said, I can't explain any of that, what happened. And then there was another man in there with him from AFOSI, Air Force Office of Special Investigations. He just pushed a piece of paper at us, said, sign here. What's this? And because he wanted us to sign a non-disclosure statement about the incident. It identified the incident, identified penalties for speaking about it to anyone. So he reminded us, you can't talk to anybody about this anytime, anywhere, not your wife, not your family, not anyone in the Air Force even. So I objected at first because we were cleared for top secret, above top secret, really. And he said, that's neither here nor there. You need to sign this. So we did. We signed it, and then we were dismissed from my commander's office, and they didn't even ask about our account of the incident. There was no questions at all, and that was curious. I didn't realize why until later, and that was because the Echo flight had gone down under very similar circumstances about 8 days earlier. And there was already a large contingent of Air Force personnel doing a investigation of that incident. And ours was very similar. So that was that. I went home. I did not tell my wife at that time about the incident. The next morning, I got a call, got me out of bed, and it was the guards themselves that were calling me and asking me to come and see them on base, to meet with them, and so they could try to make some sense out of what happened. And I had to turn them down, and that really was
Mm.
gut-wrenching for me.
Yeah.
It was terrible because they were looking for some answers, obviously. If you can try to imagine, these are young people, they're, in their 20s, and they see this bright orange light just hovering there. And what do you make of it? Is it something sent down from heaven or hell, or
Hmm.
is it the Russians? What is that? There were no answers, and so I had to turn them down. I said I
So
couldn't.
it just didn't even get to the opportunity to share some space with them and find out what
No,
frightened them so much. Did you have any sensations or feelings or about it? Did you get something telepathically from this craft or whatever it was? It's none of that because they wanted absolute containment,
that's
which is
right.
how they do it.
Yeah, that's right. And as I was talking to them, I felt, could my line be tapped? Are people listening to me and
Yeah.
this conversation? And if I did go out there, I would be in violation of that NDA.
Hmm.
So I had to turn them down. And then I was there for another, let's see, 2 years. And each time we went out on alert status to one of these facilities, we would get a debriefing before we went out. We'd be told about any incidents or any maintenance programs or improvements programs, anything going on. And in those 2 years, I never heard a word about either the Echo or the Oscar flight shutdowns, which tells you this was a big cover up.
Yeah.
They were not about to reveal anything. And the reason is because of the Condon investigation was
Mhm.
ongoing. Um,
So you couldn't even find out from maintenance what they found.
no. However, that's a good point, which I'll bring up in a little while.
Okay.
No, we had no, and I think I asked a couple of times during these briefings about the status of the Oscar flight and how whether or not what happened, etc. And we got no answers. But I did find out later that there was no damage done to any of the missiles. The missiles simply could not be launched because of the guidance system failures that it experienced. And I'll go into that a little bit in a minute. So that's pretty much the story there of the incident. I didn't speak to anybody about it. And we'll jump forward to 1994. So I left the Air Force in 1971. We went to Colorado to, I wanted to go ski. That's the only thing I can think of to do after I left the Air Force. I resigned. But before that, I was in 1969. I was sent to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base,
Wow.
home of Blue Book.
Huh.
But in 1969, Blue Book was shut down by the Air Force because, as they stated in the statement they made, they were no longer going to be, say, investigating or evaluating or speaking to the public about the subject of UFOs as a result of the Condon study, which indicated that it was not worth the effort for the Air Force to study this because there was no national security implications. Well,
Right.
that was a lot of malarkey.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, they kept investigating. They just didn't want to tell the public anything anymore and just be out of that part of the business.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I was ordered to go to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to finish my master's degree in engineering, which I had started there at Malmstrom. Now, this was very strange because I just had one or two more courses to finish, and those courses were being taught at Malmstrom. We had a training facility there where they taught us these highfalutin subjects like aerodynamics, etc. But
I love it.
I had to go to Wright-Patterson Air Force Institute of Technology to finish my classwork. So I went, followed orders. It wasn't long after I got there. I was met one day, just walking around the base. I was met by a man that I knew from the Air Force Academy. He had been a class ahead of me, but I knew him very well. He had given me hell
Mm.
as an underclassman, but he seemed very glad to see me. He said, we talked for a little while, and then he said, Bob, we got a job for you, and you're going to like it. And I said, what do you mean job? I'm here just to finish my my degree, and then I'll be off to my next assignment. And he said, no, we'll talk about it later. And then he walked away. That's all he said. So that's about the time I met Marilyn. I'd been married to another woman before when I was at Malmstrom, but we had to go through a rather ugly, messy divorce. And so I was divorced, and but when I was in the library, Marilyn happened to be working there as a library tech, and very attractive young lady. She still is. And so I asked her out, and we got to know each other, and um, I decided I was going to propose to her. So um, that happened one night at the officers' club. I decided to propose to her, and well, let me see. Let me back up. Sorry, but before that evening, I got a call from the base psychiatrist's office, and the base psychiatrist sergeant that ran the office said, "We have you coming in for a discussion on such and such a date, such a time." I said, I never made any appointment with the base psychiatrist. I had not. I had no idea what this would be about because I hadn't complained about any psychological issues. He said, nonetheless, sir, you must come in and see the base psychiatrist. I've got my orders here. So
Jeez.
I didn't know what to think, but I had been ordered, I guess, to go to this appointment. I go over to that office, go upstairs, third or fourth floor. The elevator opens and it's dark. The entire floor was dark, except down at the end of the hallway. There was one light down there, and I started walking towards that light, and sure enough, the sergeant greets me and says, "Yeah, you're at the right place." And Captain Salas, have a seat, and the doctor will call you. And so sat down. I started thinking about this whole thing. It just smelled too fishy. I thought, this could go on my record that I visited the base psychiatrist, and it might affect my career. I had no idea what this was about. So he comes out and said, "Okay, the doctor is ready for you." And I said, "I don't know what this is about. I didn't make this appointment. Please ask the psychiatrist to come out here and explain to me why I'm here." And he was a little reluctant, but he said, "Well, okay." And he went back. A few minutes go by. He comes out and says, "Sir, you're excused. You can go now." So I got up and left.
I just wanted to see if you'd show up, I guess.
No, something different. I think
Oh, okay.
because of that officer that I knew before, and something that happened later. A day or two later, I took Marilyn to the base officers club to propose, and a man comes towards us, another captain, and he says, "Are you Bob Salas or Robert Salas?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, looks like you and I are going to be roommates." I said, "What?" I, I I never met this guy. Anyway, he said, "Look, let me buy you a drink over here at the bar." So we went over there and talked. Uh, and he said, "Yeah, I was told you and I were going to be working together." He said, "I'm a helicopter pilot, and we're going to be living together as roommates, and we'll have a great time." Uh, I said, "No, we're not going to be roommates. I'm going to propose to this lady over here, and we're going to be roommates." So he was flustered because he was confused. But again, this kind of made me realize that incident at the psychiatrist's office, plus the guy I knew from the Air Force Academy, and I knew him very well, who told me they had a job for me. And then this helicopter pilot telling me that we would be working together.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't go into any details. Indicated to me that they were trying to recruit me. They meaning the secret keepers, let's say, to work possibly to recover craft, a recovery program. But that whole situation was very strange. So I finished my degree there. Marilyn and I were married in Ohio, in Dayton, and so I had a new bride, and my next assignment turned out to be the Air Force, Los Angeles Air Force Station, located in, let's see, El Segundo. That's not too far. Yeah. And there I was a Titan III propulsion engineer on the Titan III program, systems program office, which the Air Force was developing as a way of putting up satellites, mostly secret satellites. And it wasn't long, about a year that went by. And there was an inquiry for me to go to work with the, what I call the spooks, but the people upstairs that were developing programs for spy satellites. And again, this was, to me, at this point, I was just tired of secrecy. I didn't enjoy any of that at all. So I declined. And as a result of that, I was kind of encouraged, but I made my own decision, really, to resign from the Air Force. So I did. I resigned from the Air Force in 1971 for a couple of reasons. So I got out of the Air Force, decided I wanted to ski, do more skiing, and that's what I told Marilyn. And so we went off to Denver, and by that time we had our daughter with us. Our daughter had been born. And so I was there, and we decided we needed a place to stay. But so I decided to go ahead and build a house basically from scratch. I don't know if you recall, but at that time in the early 70s, you could go to a Sears catalog and order kind of like a plan and the materials to build a house.
A house kit.
A house kit. Do it.
It's like building the model, except full size, and you put your butt in it.
Well, that's what I did. I bought a piece of property and ordered the house kit, which they dumped on the property a whole bunch of 2x4s and 2x6s and nails. And I was young then, Steve. I was young.
Yeah. Yeah, you were. Ambitious, too. You build a house yourself.
Exactly. So why not?
Yeah.
This looks like a nice house. So I went ahead with that and actually completed the project with some help. But I did a lot of the grunt work myself. We finally got it done. And in the meantime, I also got a job at Martin Marietta, working on space shuttle proposals that they were doing. And finished the house, decided I got enough skiing done, and it was too cold, and let's move back to Los Angeles.
Bit warmer here.
Yeah, a little warmer. So
yeah,
I got another job doing pretty much the same thing for Rockwell International in the Downey area, I think it was. So we moved back there. We bought a house in what's the name of that place? Way out in past Riverside, and commuted. Marilyn and I had to commute to her work about 3 hours one way. So I decided to buy a home, and the best place again to buy a home were from not far from where we worked was the beach area and Manhattan Beach. So I was able to get the last VA home for sale in Manhattan Beach. And so I did. It was a real fixer, but by then, I had developed skills.
Yeah. It also helps to be an engineer.
So it was something I decided to do. I bought that house, a real fixer, but
Mhm.
we were able to add on and build up another story, and we were okay. I decided, you know what, I'd like to live closer to the beach. Obviously, the nicer, more expensive homes were uh, near the beach, so
Mhm.
uh, I decided to buy another house, fix it up, sell it. Another house, fix it up, sell it. We did a few of these, and okay, 1985. I was
Mhm.
in a particular house in Manhattan Beach, and we'll go into my experience. Uh, we were in this house one evening. My wife and I had two children. I had a son and a daughter, very young. Um, and sometime in the middle of the night, I wake up and see a blue light coming from our living room, a bluish gray light, I guess. And I woke up Marilyn and I said, "Do you see that light?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "You know, I'm going to have to get up because we don't have any blue lights coming from in the living room." And so I decided to get up. And I was about to get up, and then I couldn't. I was paralyzed, completely paralyzed from pretty much from the neck down.
So you didn't know it until you tried to move. It was like, I'm gonna get
Exactly.
up and, "Hey, wait a minute."
Yeah, exactly. I didn't realize I couldn't move my legs or arms.
Mhm.
I moved my head slightly and asked Marilyn for help, and by this time she was unconscious. She didn't respond. Um, I didn't know what to think of that because obviously this was a situation that you wanted to be wide awake for.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I remember struggling. I remember the struggle I had to try to get my mobility back. I mean, I used every ounce of energy I had to try to move, wiggle my toes, whatever.
Mhm.
And I couldn't. Then I saw something in the doorway. It looked like a person with a hood on, although I cannot to this day make out what the face looked like. It looked like it was pretty dark, uh,
Mhm.
but it seemed to have a hoodie on. Um,
That's not uncommon, you know. I mean, a lot of people have experienced that and thought it was strange, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I uh, I was I got to admit I was very frightened at that point because I couldn't move, and here was a stranger in our doorway to the bedroom, and we had two small children in the house. Uh, so next thing that happened, I recall being aware that there were small beings in our bedroom. Um, they were moving around, and they seemed like children to me. They were, you
Mhm.
know, 3 feet high or
Mhm.
like that. Uh, Again, I cannot describe at this point what they looked like, other than they were small, they were active, they seemed like children. But then apparently they were involved in lifting me up off the bed because that's the next thing that happened. I'm rising, floating above the bed. And then I'm being directed or floating towards the bedroom window. Um, I even think to myself, they're too short to unlatch the window, which I had latched that evening. Uh, and I don't think they'll be able to reach it. So I was kind of smug, thinking that, kind of got a little kick out of it. But there I was. They were directing me right through to the window, and believe it or not, and I know it's hard to believe, they took me right through the window. There was
Sure.
no broken glass, nothing. And I don't know how that happened, but I went right through that window.
I bet you have some ideas because you've had a lot of time to think about it, and so have I, how they do that. And but we can talk about that later.
Well, I want to emphasize that I got these memories. I have the retrieved memories as a result of 4 hypnotherapy sessions that I started later on. But
That
anyway,
was with Vaughn Smith.
2 of them were with Yvonne, yes.
Mm-hmm. Who were the other 2 with?
The other 2 was, oh gosh.
Okay, my hard drive's getting full too.
The lady from Australia, and also Mary, what was her name? Mary. Wait a minute. Rodwell, Mary Rodwell. Yeah.
Okay.
And
I've heard that name.
also David Jacobs.
Oh,
Yeah, David Jacobs. While we were in Brazil, he did a little session with me. So the next thing after that, I see a bright light in our backyard, and then I'm on a table. Looked like in an operating room table, but someone is holding a long needle and putting it in front of my eyes. They want me to see it, and it's being held by 2 long, bony fingers. They were enormous, long fingers, very bony. But they want me to see this needle, and they told me telepathically that they were going to insert this in my groin area. But it wouldn't hurt, they promised. Now they go ahead and do that, and it hurt like hell. I mean, it was the worst pain I've ever felt. And when I expressed that pain, within seconds, I guess, the pain went away.
Bob, could I ask you, could you describe the hand? Did the hand have 4 fingers, or did you see a thumb?
I didn't see the hand, and I don't think it was a thumb. It was 2 long fingers like this, 2 on each end of this needle. The needle was
Right.
at least a foot long, and they placed it right in front of my eyes. They wanted to make sure I saw it. But I couldn't describe the hand for you. I wish I could.
It was dark in there, was it, or not?
Not particularly dark.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I don't have a vivid memory of what the hand looked like.
Sure.
But I do have a vivid memory of those fingers, which play a role in my getting involved with the Nazca mummies later on. Okay, so they finished what they're doing, wanted to do with me, and I sit up on the table. I've got 2 escorts, and again, these were the large-headed creatures. Again, small, but they're floating right next to me. I'm sitting up on the table, and then they bring me off the table, and we all float. No walking. We were floating over to a molded seating arrangement, molded into the craft, it seemed to me, and sat me down there. Next, they take me over to another small cubicle. One of them turns me around and pokes two fingers down my spine. That's all he did. And
That's very significant. You mentioning that, and we can talk about that later as well.
and then he turns me around, escorted out along a curved hallway, and poof, I'm back in my bed. The next morning, neither my wife nor I speak about that night, and we don't recall what happened the previous night until about 24 years later. We are sitting in an audience in Ireland at a conference that I was speaking at, and the lady up there talking was an experiencer who stated, and then I was engulfed by a blue light that came into my room.
Yeah.
I looked over at Marilyn, and because something clicked, and I said, "Do you remember a blue light in our bedroom?" And she said,
Pandora's box is about to be opened.
"Yes," she said, I do remember that." And so that was the clincher for me, that this was not a dream that I had. It was something that really happened.
Right. Did you ever were you having dreams about it at all for a while? I'm not suggesting that they were dreams at all. It's just that things that are repressed in your subconscious will come out in your dreams, and you'll keep repeating it and going, "What the hell is that?" And you remember it for years later.
Well, I did remember one day after this happened, I don't know how many, a week or two later, thinking I had been in space, that I had seen the blackness of space and the stars, out in space, and it was just a flash memory that came to me, and I just kind of shook it off and didn't know what to think of that. I didn't think about it again. But after I went through the hypnotic regression process, I did have dreams, and I think they're related to my experience. And I've kept a journal of those dreams, and so there's more information there, but I don't think we have time to go through all that.
Well, looking back at the first situation you were in with the missiles and what happened above and what the guards and everything else, do you feel that did you get a sense that maybe there was some relationship there going on, that these might be the same people later on in your life? You call them people for lack of a better description.
Yes, I did think there was a connection, but of course, at this time in 1985, I hadn't gone public about my incident at Malmstrom. But after I did go public, I was starting to think that there might be a connection there. So yeah, I did have that thought.
Did you ever experience anything when you were young growing up that you saw in the sky, or did you have any attraction to the sky and the stars and astronomy?
I was fascinated with light. Oh, and one time I was walking my dog at night, and I was a teenager, and I saw what seemed to me a bright light just moving at very high speeds and passing us on one side. I think it was the left side, but it just seemed like a very, very fast bright white orb that just went that way and it was gone. Um, that was something I remember. And then my mother had an incident or two that made me very curious. And she would talk about this. I remember when we were growing up, and later I confronted her. But her story, real quick, was that one night when she was young, about 12 years old, she and her sisters went for a sleepover at a friend's house. And so they were sleeping in this big room, and during the first night, she woke up to see a tall lady in a long white dress, and of course, she was the lady was white, uh, and nobody recognized her because I come from a Mexican American family. We were dark skinned. My mother was, darker side, and so were her sisters. So this was no lady that she had met or knew. None of the other, all the sisters, and I talked to them. I talked to my aunts, who were her sisters, later on about this story, and they said, yeah, they saw all this. And the lady looked at my mother, smiled, and then left. That was it. The next night, so there was another night, the next night of the sleepover. She was asleep. And this is the way my mother tells it. Sometime in the evening, she was awakened by a dwarf who was whispering in her ear a language that she didn't understand. It was not English or Spanish, but it whispered in her ear. And then my mother wakes up and kind of yells out a little bit because she was startled. And the midget scurries off and leaves the room. And again, some of my aunts also saw this. So my mother used to love to tell this story. And I said, have you ever thought that these could have been, non-human beings? This was after I had gone public. And she said, oh, no. She kind of dismissed that whole idea. So, but I didn't dismiss it. And I still remember that story. She kept telling it over and over. Every time we got the family together, she would tell that story. So it had an impression on it.
The white dress and the way she described her is it's not something that's new. That it's somewhat typical, especially if you study near-death accounts, you will find that quite often, as well as blue lights and strange people and a lot of other things. It would seem that the two experiences are related, which is a whole other conversation. We've had people asking questions, and this might be, if you're ready, Bob, of course.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because you were able to tell the whole story all the way through, and that was really wonderful to hear it from that point to the end.
Well, there's a lot more to it as far as things I've found out in research, but
yeah,
we can kind of pause here and answer some questions.
Sure. You've got one right there on the screen.
Yeah. Abilities. Well, I'll tell you what I felt after my incident, after I was able to go public, which was a big relief to me. I felt I've been assigned a mission, and that's to say loud and clear that there was a message with this incident, the Echo Flight incident, and other multiple incidents that have occurred that are similar, and that is we are very foolish to have nuclear weapons at the ready that would completely destroy every living thing on Earth if they were used in a war. And we must make every effort to abolish them on Earth. And I think that message has been impressed in me to the point where I've been committed all these years to pass that along as much as I can. So it's more of a dedication or determination to press that message out there as a result of the incident.
We all have. It's a good thing, Bob. You got a question from Judy there.
Oh, did my wife have experiences herself? Oh, yes.
I was kind of giggling at her comment, but I wanted you to answer that one for sure. So
very much so, very much so. And she has had visitations. She's had physical effects from these visitations. And she has an ability, I think, of healing, which she tries to use when she can. But she tries to help people through her healing, and she's actually produced a product called Love Blessing. Love's Blessing. It's some 26 essential oils that are used as a spray that have healing abilities. And this product was developed as a result of communication with the cosmos, I guess.
So anyway, she had a lot of special abilities.
I think so. I think she's very intuitive.
I was trying to look through here and try to find your book cover too, because you do have a book as well, but you have more questions too.
I've got 3 books. Yeah. Do I have had PTSD or any lasting side effects from his encounters? I wouldn't call it PTSD. Like I said, they certainly have made a strong impression upon me, both the encounters. But I don't think I've had any ill effects from them, or so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, I did find it. Okay, so now I'm going to make it easy for me to find this. I knew you were still in there somewhere, so. And it should have gone up to the top, I hope. I should have had this up before. So, any other questions? I wanted to get that book cover up there.
Well, I've got a copy. Do you think the government will ever be honest about this topic? Well, that's kind of a good lead in to what I was going to talk about.
We got a comedian here.
Yeah, well, I did give a presentation to the Aero Group, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which is supposed to be investigating this subject for the Department of Defense, the intelligence agencies. I gave that on February the 15th, 2023. So that's a couple of years ago. And after I gave the presentation, they congratulated me on a thorough job. I presented over 20 documents supporting the two incidents, Echo and Oscar. And I said, "Can I ask a question?" And they said, "Sure. Are you going to contact the Air Force to get validation of the fact that these incidents occurred or confirm it?" And they said no. They weren't, because they tried it before and got nowhere with the Air Force. And to this day, the Air Force has not contacted me, or other than the one of their offices did contact me when I was giving a presentation in October of excuse me, I think it was 2021 or something like that. And they wanted to see if they could come and listen. And I said, sure. But other than that, I've never been contacted by an agency to stop talking about my incident, even though I admitted I signed an NDA. So technically, I'm in violation of that NDA by talking about the Oscar flight incident, because the Echo flight incident was declassified. I decided that since my incident was so similar and the Air Force declassified the Echo incident, albeit they didn't admit that UFOs were involved, but they did declassify the incident itself. I decided to keep speaking, even though I found out later that I was not at Echo flight, I was at Oscar flight.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that the Aero Group could not make headway with the Air Force to get answers on either my story or any of the other incidents that they where they interviewed the witnesses of involving nuclear facilities and UFOs, they haven't been able to pursue it, apparently.
Apparently, yeah. You know, they knew more.
Well, yes, of course.
It's happened so often.
Yeah, yeah. So will we get final disclosure? It's going to be difficult. The way the Congress people that are involved now, interested in learning more, they're going about it the wrong way. They have to first understand the programs that are used to keep these secrets. A lot of them were called special access programs, or SAPs, which are highly controlled as far as access goes. And there's a group called the Information Security Oversight Office, ISO, that works under the executive branch, that monitors all classification programs. And they were going to have to, if our government wants to get to the bottom of these things, they're going to have to approach it in a way where the people that have the knowledge about these programs, the agencies and the people involved, they're going to have to figure out a way to give them clearance to come forward and speak openly to the Congress. And I don't think they've done that yet. There is a very strong group, I believe, called I call it the UFO cabal, secrecy cabal,
Yeah.
embedded in government, not just our government, but others.
Mhm.
But it's cooperating with each other, and they've, I don't know, sworn to maintain these secrets as long as possible for whatever reasons they have.
Well, probably just to keep control over us.
Yeah. So it's going to be very difficult, I think.
Got a
To
question
get
up there. Constellation.
constellation.
Mm.
What does that mean?
It's another program
Oh,
that they have that's been talked about, and also George said, "Would somebody please tell me who Arrow is?"
well, they were formed in 2021. I'm sorry, 2021,
Right.
by congressional regulations. Uh, they are organized by both the DoD and the National Intelligence Director to interview people, get agencies to come clean on what they have on UFO subject or UAP subject, and document this and make a historical record. But they've been woefully unsuccessful because of what I
Mhm.
just mentioned, uh, the heavy secrecy that's
No,
involved in these programs. Yeah.
we all saw the hearings. We saw how they behaved. Evidently, it's called Immaculate Constellation. Um,
Uh, okay. All right.
I don't know what's so immaculate about it, but yeah.
Okay. Well, so I'd like to, I guess if we can kind of bring this to a little bit of closure, unless there's more questions, but
Sure. Well, we need to have you back for sure to talk more about this. I mean, you know, in an hour or so,
yeah.
you've had so much to think about. You've been constantly researching and investigating on your own, and learning a lot of stuff about this. I'm sure you'd like to share with us more. So
Well, there is more, but
yeah,
we can we can talk about that sometime.
I have some ideas about that. We will talk. So
Very good.
anyone else have a question they'd like to ask Bob at this time before we close the show for tonight? And by the way, your video and audio was perfect. Because it doesn't, being an engineer, it doesn't surprise me. Everybody's thanking you.
Good. I'm happy
Yeah,
to do it.
you're very, very well loved and very much appreciated, Bob.
Well, thank you very much. I'm
And
here.
so is Meryl.
Yes, of course.
We know she's right there. She's always right there. And
Uh,
she's very
she's
special.
she's within hearing range, I think.
Yeah, just to make sure you, you keep it all in mind in case you forget something. I do it all the time myself.
Every once in a while, she comes over and hands me notes of something I forgot to say, but she's quiet tonight. I did hear some good news from Steve Bassett. I hope he doesn't mind my mentioning it. That Representative Luna has identified some dates for the next hearing,
Mhm.
and that's supposed to happen, I think, May the 12th.
That's
Before
pretty
that,
close.
yeah, and before that, they're going to have meetings in a skiff with David Grush and Lou Elizondo and others um, to discuss possible possibilities for getting disclosure. So that next one should be interesting.
Yeah, that's good news. Okay. Well, I guess we'll sign off, and we'll see you in Maryland soon, I hope.
I
And
hope so.
yeah, we should get together. We got some.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Let's do it, Steve.
Okay. I'm going to sign off, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. And thank you, Bob, for being here, and Marilyn in the background. We love you guys so much. I mean, it's just, you're a great community, and boy, you're helping the world change. And we really appreciate that.
Well, the feeling's mutual, Steve, and you too are doing a wonderful job with your program. We can't get enough of it. We watch it as much as we can, and I think everyone else should also.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to end the stream. Good night.
All right. Good night. Take care.